He disliked Rome as a city. But then it was not one city, but many. The Germans, French, Portuguese, Greeks, Corsicans, Sicilians, Arabs, Levantines, Jews, all compacted within their own areas, welcoming outsiders no more than did the Florentines. Balducci had said to him, "These Romans are an ugly race, or I should say, a hundred ugly races." He had founded a heterogeneous gathering of peoples who wore different clothes, spoke different languages, ate different foods, cherished different values. Everybody appeared to have come from somewhere else, habitually calling down a pox on the city for its decay, floods, pestilences, lawlessness, filth, and corruption. Since there was no government, no laws or police courts or councils for protection, each section governed itself as best it could. The convenient cemetery of crimes was the Tiber, where floating corpses regularly greeted the early morning risers. There was no equitable distribution of wealth, justice, learning, arts. As he walked for hours about Rome, he found it a shambles, its widespread walls, which had protected 500,000 people in the days of the empire, now enclosing less than 70,000. Whole areas that had been populated were neglected ruins. There was hardly a block, even in the heavily populated sections, without black gaping holes between buildings, like missing teeth in an old crone's mouth. Its architecture was a hodgepodge of crude dung-colored brick, black tufa stone, tan travertine, blocks of gray granite, pink and green marble stolen from other areas. The manners of the people were execrable. They ate in the streets, even the well-dressed wives. From bakery shops to walk along munching on fresh sugar rolls, chewing pieces of hot tripe and other specialties from the vendors' carts and street cook stoves, consuming dinner piecemeal in public. The residents had no pride in their city, no desire to improve it or provide rudimentary care. They told him, "Rome is not a city, it's a church. We have no power to control or change it." When he asked, then why do people stay? He was answered, "Because there is money to be made." Rome had the most unsavory reputation in Europe. The contrasts with homogeneous Florence, compact within its walls, immaculately clean, a self-governing republic, inspired of art and architecture, growing rapidly without poverty, proud of its tradition, revered throughout Europe for its learning and justice, were for him sharp and painful. Most personally painful was the atrocious stonework of the buildings he passed each day. In Florence, he had rarely been able to resist running his fingers over the beautifully carved and fitted pietra serena of the edifices. Here he winced as he practiced. I picked out the crude strokes of the chisel, the gouged and blemished surfaces, the unmatched beveling. Florence would not have paved its streets with these botched building stones. He stopped in front of a construction in the Piazza del Pantheon, with its wood and iron pipe scaffolding held together at the joints by leather thongs. Masons putting up a wall of a house were pounding large blocks of travertine, bruising the substance because they did not know how to split it. He picked up a sledge, turned to the foreman, and cried, Permit you what?" He trapped the end of a block, found its point of stratification with a swift, authoritative blow, split its long ways. Taking a hammer and chisel from a workman's hands, he shaped and beveled blocks out of the two layers, tooling the surfaces with long, rhythmic strokes until the stone changed color as well as form, and glowed beneath his hand. He looked up to find himself surrounded by resentful eyes. One of Mason's growled, "Stonework is for beasts. Do you think he would be here if he didn't have to eat?" Michelangelo apologized for intruding. He walked down the Via Pellicciare, feeling a fool. Yet for Florentine stonemason, the surfacing of a block constituted his self-expression. He was respected by his friends according to his skill and resourcefulness in modeling the stone spring out the individual character. Working the stone was considered the most venerable of crafts, an inherent part of the elemental faith that man and stone had natural affinities. When he returned to the palace, he found an invitation from Paolo Rucellai to attend the reception for Piero de' Medici, who was in Rome attempting to gather an army, and Cardinal Giovanni de' Medici, who had taken a small house near the Via Florida. Michelangelo was touched to have been included, happy to leave his own dull room. and bored to see Medici again. Saturday morning at 11. As he finished shaving and combing his hair, forming deep curls on his forehead, he heard the sound of trumpets and ran out to see the spectacle, excited to lay eyes at last on this Borgia Pope whom the Medici had feared and Savonarola had picked as his special target, preceded by red-robed cardinals in the cross and followed by purple-cloaked princes. Pope Alexander VI, born Rodrigo Borgia in Spain, dressed all in white stole and precious pearls, white robe on a white horse, was leading a procession to the Campo dei Fiori on his way to the Franciscan convent in Trastevere. 64-year-old Alexander VI appeared to be a man of enormous virility, built big of bone and flesh, with a widely arched nose, swarthy complexion, and fleshy cheeks. Though he was called a theater actor in Rome, he possessed many attributes besides the brilliant insolence for which he was known. As Cardinal Rodrigo Borgia, he had won the reputation of amassing more beautiful women and vaster sums of wealth than anyone preceding him. As early as 1460, he had been reproved by Pope Pius II for unseemly gallantry, a euphemism that covered his 6 known children of varying mothers, of whom his 3 favorites were Juan, playboy exhibitionist, prodigious spender of the vast fortunes his father had absorbed from the Roman clergy and barons; Caesar, handsome sensualist, sadist, and warrior, accused of clogging the Tiber with corpses, and the beautiful Lucrezia, accused by Rome of having informal love affairs between her growing list of official marriages. The high walls around the Vatican were guarded by 3,000 armed guards, but Rome had developed a communications system that spread news of the happenings therein to the 7 hills. If good things occurred, little of it leaked out. The full panoplied procession having passed, Michelangelo walked up the Via Florida to the Ponte. Because he had arrived too early, Paolo Rucellai received him in his study, a room with dark wood paneling containing bound manuscripts, marble bas-reliefs, oil paintings on wood, a Florentine carved desk, and leather chairs. Paolo's handsome face resembled Bernardo Rucellai's with its strong, regular features, large, expressive eyes, and light skin, tone of which Michelangelo mourned had he inherited from his mother's family. "We Florentines are a tightly knit colony here," Paolo was saying. "As you know by now, we have our own government, treasury, laws, and means of enforcing them. Otherwise, we could not exist in this morass. If you need help, come to us. Never go to a Roman. Their idea of a square deal is one in which they are protected on 5 sides." In the drawing room, he met the rest of the Florentine colony. He bowed to Piero, who was cool and formal after the quarrel in Bologna. Cardinal Giovanni, despised by the Pope and frozen out of all church activity, seemed genuinely happy to see him, though Giulio was frigid. Michelangelo learned that Contessino had been brought to bed with his son Luigi, and was again incinta. To his eager question about whether Giuliano was also in Rome, Giovanni replied, "Giuliano is at the court of Elisabetta Gonzago and Giudibaldo Montefeltro in Urbino. He will complete his education there. The court of Urbino, high in the Apennines, was one of the most cultured in Italy. Giuliano would thrive." 30 Florentines sat down to dinner, eating cannelloni, stuffed with fine chopped beef and mushrooms, veal and milk, tender green beans, drinking Broglio wines, and talking animatedly. They never referred to their adversary as the Pope or Alexander VI, but only as the Borgia, striving to preserve their reverence for the papacy while expressing their utter contempt for the Spanish adventurer who, through a series of calamitous mishaps, had seized the Vatican and was ruling on the premise, according to Cavalcanti, that all the wealth of Christendom belongs to the papacy, and we shall have it. The Florentines, in turn, were not popular with the Pope. He knew them to be adversaries, but he needed the banks, world trade, the high import duties they paid on products brought into Rome, their stability. Unlike the Roman barons, they did not wage war against him. They just prayed fervently for his demise. For his reason, they favored Savonarola in his struggle against the Pope, and found Piero's mission embarrassing. Over their port, the guests grew nostalgic. spoke of Florence as though they were only a few minutes from the Piazza della Signoria. It was a moment for which Michelangelo had been waiting. "What about art commissions in Rome?" he asked. "The popes have always called in painters and sculptors." The Borgia summoned Pinturicchio from Perugia to decorate his apartment in the Vatican, said Cavalcanti, "and several rooms in Sant'Angelo. Pinturicchio finished last year and left Rome. Perugino has frescoed the Borgia sitting room as well as the tower in the Papal Palace. Perugino is gone now too." "What of marble? My friend Andrea Bregno is the most respected sculptor in Rome. He seems to have a monopoly on tomb carving, runs a big shop with a number of apprentices." "I should like to meet him." "You'll find him an able man, a lightning-like worker who has decorated most of the churches. I'll tell him that you are coming in to see him." Balducci shared his countrymen's detestation of Rome, yet there was one phase of Roman life that he relished. The 7,000 public women assembled from all parts of the world the next Sunday following their midday dinner at the Trattoria Toscana. Balducci took Michelangelo for a tour. He knew Rome's piazzas, fountains, forums, triumphal arches, temples, not for their historical background, but for the nationality of the women who made these areas their headquarters. They walked the streets for hours, peering into the faces, adjudging the figures beneath the gamur, while Balducci kept up a running fire of the commentary on the virtues, drawbacks, pleasurable qualities of each. The Roman women carrying parrots or monkeys on their shoulders, covered with jewelry and perfume, and followed by their shiny black servants, arrogantly lorded it over the foreigners. The Spanish girls with their jet-black hair and eyes of great clarity. The tall Greek girls dressed in their native white robes buckled at slender waists. The dark-skinned Egyptian women in cloaks hanging straight down from the shoulders. The blue-eyed blondes from the north of Europe with flowers twined through their braids. The straight-haired Turkish women peering from behind veils. The slow-eyed Orientals swathed in yards of brightly colored silks. "I never take the same one twice," Balducci explained. "I like variety, contrast, different colors, shapes, personalities. That's the interesting part for me, like traveling around the world." "How can you tell, Balducci, that the first one you pass won't be the most attractive one of the day?" "My innocent friend, it's the hunt that counts. That's why I prolong the search until late at night sometimes. The externals are different, size, shape, mannerism, but the act the same, largely the same routine. It's the hunt that counts." Michelangelo was amused. His experience with Clarissa had given him no desire for a simulation of love with some strange hired woman, only a desire for Clarissa. "I'll wait for something better than routine." "For love?" "In a way." "Che rigorista. I'm surprised to find an artist so conventional." "I save all my unconventionality for my carving." He would go without carving, so long as he was drawing with sculpture in mind. But the weeks passed, and no word came from the Cardinal Riario. He applied to the appointment secretary several times, only to be put off. He understood that the Cardinal was busy, for next to the Pope he was said to be the richest man in Europe, running a banking and commercial empire comparable to Lorenzo de' Medici's. Michelangelo never saw the man perform a religious service, but Leo volunteered, and he said his offices in the palace chapel early in the morning. Finally, Leo arranged an appointment. Michelangelo carried a folio of sketches. Cardinal Riario appeared pleased to see him, though mildly surprised that he was still in Rome. He was in his office, surrounded by ledgers, bookkeepers, and scriveners with whom Michelangelo had been eating several times a week, but with whom he had not become friends. They stood at tall desks and did not look up from their work. When Michelangelo asked if the Cardinal had decided what he might like to see sculptured from the 7-foot block, Riario replied, "We will think about it, all in good time. In the meanwhile, Rome is a wonderful place for young men. There are few pleasures of the world that we have not developed here, and now we must be excused." Michelangelo walked slowly down the broad staircase to the unfinished courtyard, his chin burrowing into his chest. Apparently he was in the same positions as he had been with Piero de' Medici. Once one was under the roof of these gentlemen, they were content. Nothing further needed to be done. Waiting for him in his room was a gaunt figure in black mantle over a white habit, eyes sunken, looking hungry and exhausted. "Leonardo, What are you doing in Rome? How did you leave our family? I have seen no one, said Leonardo coldly. I was sent on the